Well, welcome back, everybody, to Be the Trader. Today, I have an awesome guest. He has his own trading podcast called Beyond the PDT. I'm sure you've heard of it. And he's on his own journey to becoming a successful day trader. And Matt Monaco, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here. We've met some time ago, and it's crazy how we met. I didn't even know who you were at first, even though I listened to your show.
We met through I think it was Tyson.
Yeah.
I think Tyson, he was our second episode on Beyond the PDT, which is crazy. And then so we met like probably 9 months ago. That's crazy.
It's so crazy. And then we lost connections and now we're back. So that's awesome. Well, I'm glad to get you on the show here because I want to talk to you about a couple of things and just how life has been and really just kind of give us an understanding of where you're at today and what your plans are. So if you could start off by, you're just now finishing school, right? Or just a semester? Are you done?
This semester. I have one semester left, so I'll be graduating in May. So.
Nice. So what's the plan?
So right now, obviously I've been working at trading for probably about 2 years now. And it's definitely my consistency, I would say, is increasing, but it's not near a level or profitability level where like I could like take this full time at this moment. So going forward, I'll be graduating in May. I do have a job lined up that I will be starting in August next year. So, I got a little bit of time, 8 months. So if something crazy happens in the next 8 months, which would be cool. That'd be so awesome. But we're just taking it day by day. And if that happens, that's sweet. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm going, I'm going to need money. I have college loans to pay off. So I'll be working in the Boston area and just working a full-time job. I'm not going to stop trading. Again? Software engineering.
Oh man, dude, you're going to be fine.
I can't complain about any of it, but obviously I really love trading and I love to make this work. I'm not going to stop. I'm probably just going to have to adjust what I'm doing a little bit because I won't be able to be in front of the screens as much as I am right now. But yeah, exciting.
So I'm just curious, like when you discovered trading, you said about 2 years. Were you a freshman in college? Was this high school?
Yeah. So I guess you could say I discovered trading in high school, but like I had no money. So it was kind of like I just watched a couple YouTube videos and I was like, oh, this was cool for one day when I actually have some money. But like it wasn't like serious or anything. Then after freshman year of college, that summer after, I convinced my parents to help me join the Tim Sykes challenge. And that's kind of how I was introduced into it. So that summer, I didn't have like a job or anything. Just because I've saved up enough money from doing other jobs where I was like, this summer I can like study the challenge. So like I dedicated most of that summer, I understood the challenge, watched all those videos, which, gives you a pretty good basic education into the stock market. So yeah, that was like 2 years ago. When I really started dipping my toes into it. And then from there, we just been building on it slowly, doing my own thing, trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. And so that was 2017 about-ish, right?
Yes, that would be the summer of 2017.
It's so crazy. What was your name on there? Because was it just like Matt Monaco on the chat room? Because I was in there too in 2017.
I changed it at one point. I think it was like Monodank at first or something like that. And then I changed it to Mono Trader because I was like, that's a little more fitting.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I don't remember what mine was. I think it was something to do with Flash. I'm a huge Flash fan. I love Flash. So I think it was like Flash something. But anyway, that's awesome, man. So I'm curious on, you said, you've been working on trading. You're starting to see some success, but you're not where that profitability that you want. But would you say that, dive into that. What do you mean by do you mean you haven't found what you're good at, your niche in terms of being profitable, or are you saying you're not profitability to where the level that you want to be to go full time? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think more of the second one.
Okay.
I kind of, we can get into it in a little bit, found what I'm good at. I've met a lot of great traders through Beyond the PDT, and so I have a lot of great friends and connections I've made, which has drastically helped just my trading in general. But it's more of just, since, I can save as much money, but like I'm a college student at the end of the day, I'm not making radical amount of money, so I
Yeah.
don't really have enough saved up to pay off my loans. And it's really just kind of the loan factor. Like, I guess if I didn't have loans, I might be more willing to take that jump just because I don't have that bill every month. So yeah, it's just more of I don't have enough saved up to take the leap and then like consistently make enough money every month on top of it to be able to make those payments and, live the life I want to live.
Well, that's understandable. And I think it's smart the way you're going about this because some people don't do that route. They usually like, whatever. I'm just gonna make it happen.
Mhm.
And I think you're doing the right route here. And I wish you the best on that because it seems like, I mean, one thing that you and I discuss offline is the big cap strategy is really what you've been focusing on. So let's talk about a little bit about that. I mean, because you started in small cap land, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like I mentioned, started Tim Sykes, and he does a lot of OTC, but just OTC market, especially this year, like 2019, has been kind of slow. Um, so I started there, and then the volatile penny stocks, like I got it a little bit, I guess, but it's just then all of a sudden you'll get just this one major loss because the stock was dumping on you. Just the volatility was crazy. And even when you feel like you're doing everything right, just that one loss will come and it'll just like wipe out all your previous gains. So I was like, I'm sick
Oh
of
my
this.
God, no. It's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating. And I was like, I'm sick of this. I was doing that for like a year probably. And just, I don't know exact figures, but I was definitely down on the year, just because of learning and just
Yeah.
that niche in general. I just couldn't, get anything going. So then I started, I had an internship, because part of my degree, we have to have like a full year of internship, like a paid internship, for us to graduate. That's like one of our requirements, which is honestly sick because then from January to August this year, I worked full time and was able to save up. I was able to get over PDT just from saving from that job.
Nice. There you
So
go.
then come mid-August or so when I'm like, because I was trading, don't get me wrong, when I was on the job, but it's just not, you can't be in front of the screens all day. You're going to miss a ton of stuff. So then come mid-August, I was like, all right, let's like dive back into this. And then I actually had enough money to look at some of these larger caps because I mean, it's just tough when you have a small amount of money. Like if you have $5,000 and sometimes some of these stocks I've been trading lately are like $70 stocks. Like it's tough to like,
Right.
you can get good risk reward, but you can't risk a ton of money just because you can't buy enough shares. So I kind of moved that way just because over the course of the 2 years, I would look at the charts and I'd be like, wow, these like you don't get dumped on or you don't get squeezed out of them. Like they kind of just they trend like how they're supposed to trend, and like there'll be a support level and it's like it holds the support level. It doesn't just you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Um,
do. I do actually.
yeah,
We'll talk
exactly.
about that.
So so I've been kind of like working on it the last couple months, and last month in November I had one of my best months of the year. And again, I'm risking relatively small size, like because I'm not going on my way to risk $1,000 on a trade. Usually I'm
Yeah.
risking like $100, like a reasonable loss, and
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
make 3, 4, 5 times on these trends, and you're not gonna get it in one spike in like 5 minutes. But if you hold it for an hour, you can get 5 or 6 times your risk, which is absolutely awesome.
And that's what's way different though compared to small caps. And small caps, I'm sure that was an adjustment for you, right? Like in small caps, you're so used to let me get in now and then maybe in an hour, max, I'm going to hit my profit target.
Mhm.
But it seems like with the big caps, talk about the difference there.
They just move slower, and it's not bad that they move slower. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they form support and resistance levels more, and then it just takes them longer to break those levels or trend more because a lot of times they are higher floats, which is kind of the big reason they move so much slower.
And
Uh,
so
yeah,
And
go ahead.
and what you mean by that is because I've been experimenting on these big caps too. Because you and I have been talking, and I know a little bit before we started talking, I was like, I'm gonna start trading these with paper money, and then you and I connected, got reconnected, and then you started saying that's all you've been doing, and so now I've been dabbing with that with like little money, and I can tell you that, man, it's ridiculous how they move different. They definitely move different.
Yeah.
They do trend very well, but they also take a while to start trending,
Hmm.
right? I don't know if you've noticed that, but like it could range for a little while, but then once it breaks and has volume, it can actually start to trend very nicely and
Agreed.
fairly quickly. But it seems like you gotta, with your job coming up, God willing, things go really well. Maybe you don't, but God willing, they go really well, and maybe you're like, you know what, I'm gonna go work in August, and then I'll have a dual income. Because it seems like with big caps for myself, because I work full time now, is that you can place a trade and then you can kind of just let it work itself out. I don't know if you've experienced that. I haven't been trading them as long as you have, but I've kind of experienced that.
Yeah. I mean, it totally depends on the play, but it's not like uncommon because they move slow. You can like think about it longer. You don't have to rush into it. Like sometimes you'll see it at like 9:45, like 15 minutes after the market open, and you don't even really need to take a position for the next like 30 minutes because you're just like you see it starting to set up, and then you finally let it set up, and then it's like I'll enter a position and then put a stop in and then like go to class or like do my
Yeah,
like
it's so different.
it's so different because also on the stops, a huge thing is you're not going to get the slippage, right? Like you
Right.
might get a couple pennies, but you're not going to get like a 10% slippage like you might get on like some penny
Oh
stock out
my
there.
God. Yeah.
So I can
And if
throw
you
a
use the
stop
stop
in.
limit, you're just ruined.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point too. But like you're like, all right, this trend's developing. You can slowly get into your position. You don't have to rush into it. You can think about it and be like, is this really working? Is this really what I'm looking for? And then you put a stop in and just like walk away. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
be like,
yeah.
all right, I'm gonna lose, 1 R on this trade if it's wrong, and I'm gonna let the trend develop, and I'll check on it, periodically. I don't just like blindly trust it for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But if as long as the trend continues, and then you come back, you look at it, and it's near your profit target of like 3 R or 4 R, and then you take the trade off, and it's not like it's just going to rip spike into those profit targets either. So you have to be there to sell. Like it's just going to trend slowly towards those profit targets, and then you take it off. It's for me especially, it's been much less stressful, and also I've been kind of going this way because I know my job's coming up, and I know like this is a
Nice.
strategy I can still probably do, on the job. Just like look at the market, for the first 30 minutes of the day, see if any plays are setting up, hop in, put a stop and do some work and
Yep.
just, occasionally scan and make sure nothing's going crazy wrong. And I mean, I see it totally being possible to continue this even in August when I start my job. So,
I do too, man, and that's why I'm excited for you. I think you were smart to look at this now, so that way you can get it ready to go. So when you start your job, you kind of have it to where it's kind of automatic, like
yeah.
it's just not second nature, and that's huge, man. That's what I was trying to work on before I started working, and it's such a big difference. Let me ask you this: so a couple of things you hit on was the profit targets. So 3R, 4R. How are you doing on that? Like, are you doing really well? Like, are you able to hold out? Like, is that something that's a challenge for you, or is that something that's not a challenge for you at all?
It's definitely a challenge on multiple fronts because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm up like 1.5, 2 R. Like, I just want to like take this off because you like glance at your P&L, which you probably shouldn't do. And then you're like, oh, wow, I'm up like a good amount. I should just take this and leave.
Mhm.
And then on the other side, it's also like sometimes you look at the trends and you'd be like it's like you're already at your profit target and you're like this trend's still going, like what's the point of me selling? And now sometimes that might work out, don't get me wrong, but there's also plenty of times where it hits your profit target and then just the trend will reverse, and then next thing you know, an hour later you're basically break even on the trade because you got greedy and you just
Oh, that's so frustrating.
it's so frustrating. So definitely something I'm working on. The goal is always like 3 to 4 R range, depending on the setup and if there's any resistance or whatever on the chart. Because I'm mostly take these from the long side. Um, so yeah, definitely that's something I've been working on. I talked to Brian Lee a little bit a couple of months ago about his approach to that, and he gave some sweet advice on like just indicators in general. Like because you hear a lot of people and they bash indicators a lot, but there's probably a time and a place for an indicator. And now every strategy might have their own indicator, and there's no like golden one indicator. But if you can find like an indicator to help you hold on longer, or like that gives you kind of good sell indication more times than not, and just like lets you like shift your mindset a little bit and be like, oh, like this thing's like saying, oh, it's probably a good time to sell here, and I'm at my profit target. Like maybe I should take some off. So that's something I've been working on a little bit. Not perfect yet, but
Yeah.
I think we're moving in the right direction. So I'm pretty excited.
Which one are you using then?
I've been focused mostly on the RSI. I've been trying to find just because they trend so well. So I felt like it was a pretty good fit. So I've been messing with the periods a little bit, and the numeric values, like 70 is considered overbought, and I've been messing with those to see if specific value. Still tweaking it because obviously you can like over optimize it to like one stock or whatever, and then it doesn't work on anything else. So I'm trying to figure out like a general one, and I'm not using it strictly as like once it's overbought, I'm going to sell. I just want to be like aware that like, oh, maybe it's
so if you get some kind of indication with that, you're like, oh, this is maybe I should get rid of it.
Exactly. That's kind of my approach there.
That makes sense. And that's a good point, man, because a lot of people will use an indicator like VWAP and say, oh, it just broke VWAP, I'm out. And then that could be so frustrating because that's not the only, it shouldn't be the be all indicator, right? Exactly. And like you were saying earlier, so I agree with you on that. And props to you for exploring and trying new things because that's hard for people. Sometimes you start to be good at one thing and then you're like, man, I got to improve in this area, but I need to learn this new skill and I got to change the way I think to adapt to this new skill. And some people like myself, I actually have a challenge with that where I don't want to use this indicator. I want to be a trader like this. And it's nice that you're just like, nope, whatever I have to do to get better. And that's a good sign, man. So good for you. You know, I was curious on what to go back at the beginning, you mentioned like you're more on the long side. What is one strategy that you feel like that calls your name? You know, like there's something that's for you that you find that's a lot easier for you to trade on these big caps.
Sure. So a lot of the times, same general concept as like when I was looking at small caps, right? I want to see some news because when there's news, there's going to be more volume, more eyes on it in general, which you kind of need for any stock to move and trend and do whatever. So I'm looking, lately it's been earnings season, which has been great because there's been a couple stocks every day that beat earnings. And the first day, I've been trying to play them, but it's kind of tricky because it's just right after earnings, it's super volatile. And I mean, in these large cap, there's some, bigger players, larger institutions, and they can kind of like throw a stock in either direction pretty easily, especially like right after earnings. So the day one earnings I kind of avoid, and I like to see them hold up for like the whole first day. And then day two is kind of where I'm looking to buy into them a lot of the times. It doesn't have to be just earnings, like any
catalyst that's making it with volume,
like
right?
This last week, RAD was a great one.
Both got that.
The first day it probably would have been a good play too, but I didn't take it. But then the second day it held up the whole first day, which is what I'm looking for. And then it kind of, I want to see it either go like sideways or like dip down a little bit at the open. Just because if it spikes right off the bat, I don't want to chase that. It kind of destroys my entire risk reward there. But right off the open, if you pull up like the RAD chart for Friday, what was it yesterday, the 20th? It went sideways for the first like 5 minutes, and there was like a nice 10-cent channel. Like it was like you could risk 10 cents a share.
It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. It was so nice. And then so like that little channel right there, or dip down and form the channel, same kind of concept is what I'm looking for, because then I have a clear risk, which is super critical. And then I just when that broke over that channel, that's where I scooped up my shares, and I only made it like 80 cents a share or something, but it ended up going.
Which is awesome. Yeah, which is still awesome. See,
I know.
You're so critical. It's ridiculous.
I know. It ended up going like $3 a share, some ridiculous amount.
It did.
But yeah.
To put it in perspective for everyone who's listening to the show, is it actually opened at like 12, maybe 12.8. 12.15, and it bottomed at 12.10, and then it topped out at like 12.25, and then there was a solid support area around the 12s too. You could use whole dollar, and then it spiked through 12.25, 12.20, which yesterday all day consolidation, the mid highs were 12.20s. So right when it broke that, it was just a clear sign. And there's earnings too, and then you just jump in. That thing just kept going, and it was just trending so nicely, man. So I'm so happy that you caught that. That's awesome. It's a good point though that you're saying. I like how you like to wait till usually day two, because you like to see if day one holds up. And then day two, you're like, okay, now I have my support. It shows a lot of things on day one. It shows you,
Yep.
number one, it held up, right? That
Yep.
means there is some solid buying. Number two, there's usually a support and resistance set up from day one. So now you have a clear areas of where you should maybe buy or think about buying and where you should maybe hold support. And then day two, maybe it shows you on the new level of support like it did for you on RAD. It showed a little bit higher than maybe normal, but now you have even a tighter risk area because now you knew if it broke out of that and then went back down below that, I mean, that's probably not a good sign that you should stay in. So
Exactly.
love that. I love that, man, because you were risking probably 10, 15, maybe 20 cents max, like if it was like shitty risk, like if it like went way against you, but you had made 80 cents, which is a huge return, man, which I love to hear. And so power to you on there. Good job there, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that's important is when you start working, all right, well, how do you see this working out for you? I'm very curious, like, how do you see it working in your mind? Like, okay, I'm starting work. Here's my plan. Have you thought of a plan of how you're going to do, not like the plan to get out of work, but the plan to trade?
Sure. Well, so I'm very excited because the place I got an offer and accepted the offer from is like very modern, super chillaxed. It's not just like a strict corporate structure. Like, it's kind of, they have like a hot desk culture, which that just means like you don't like have a desk. You kind of just work wherever you want.
Oh, nice.
They have multiple offices in the Boston area, and they don't even care like what office you show up to. You can work at either office. So you just have to show up.
I should have got an IT degree, man.
Yeah, it's very like startup culture sort of thing. And a lot of the times, like, I mean, depending on your team and your project, like it's not uncommon for you to like work from home even like a day or two a week, as long as like they care you just get your work done, which is great. And the hours are kind of flexible too. Not necessarily like I can't like not show up till after market open sort of thing, but like if I show up early and maybe like, take a break for an hour or so, like, and all that matters is at the end of the day, like I did my work, right? That's kind of just so you get an idea of the environment I'm working in, which is great because then it like helps me with the trading idea. And like, so as we were talking about, I see a lot of these the day before, right? Like, or the night of. Like, there's very rarely do I see a really good play for me that morning of. So the night before, I'm totally prepared. I'm just waiting for the market open. And usually I get narrowed down to like 3 or 4 stocks, which I can, fit on a laptop screen, no problem at all. And then, so I know what I'm looking for, and it's in the first 30 minutes. And if they break down at the open, like, oh, it's no play. If they spike at the open, a lot of times it's just no play. So like, it's very black and white for me if there's going to be a play that day. And then I don't see any problem like putting on a couple shares and then throwing a stop in. Like as long as, I don't anticipate any slippage, which is very rare in these big caps. Sometimes they're really illiquid, which is a little scary. But as long as it's, trading good volume, just put a stop in and be like, all right, I'm going to accept this loss if I'm wrong, and then carry out my day, do some work, check it in on it, and ideally a trend would form and I'd be able to ride it for a couple hours and then exit out. So that's kind of my plan going forward. I'm sure the first couple months I'm there, it's not going to work out perfectly just because I'm like onboarding and
you're going to be learning
learning a lot, and I'm sure it's going to be relatively busy the first couple of months. But once I get my feet on the ground and kind of a little more established, I think a lot more of those freedoms that I was talking about earlier, I'll be able to do and then capitalize more on my trading, which I'm excited about. I'm pretty excited about the job too. So
I'm excited for you, man. That sounds like a great first gig. So I wish you the best on that. I was curious for the audience sake, what do you feel like is your biggest challenge right now? And what you're really like, man, this is what I got to improve on right now.
Yeah, so I spent actually a lot of time last night looking at this because I had a lot of good trades this week, but I am your classic over trader. I just do like degenerate shit all the time. I don't know how better to say it, but like, because I just outlined clearly my setup there. And then but then sometimes I'm like, oh well, this is like kind of close or whatever. So then I'll take that rad trade, that one really good trade, but then I'll take like 1 or 2 other stupid shit trades, and then I won't lose. Like I'll be within my risk limits, but like I'll look back on it and be like, this setup like clearly wasn't fully developed yet, and I just like rushed into it because I was greedy and wanted another trade on. So that's definitely my biggest thing. I'm trying to really hone down on those criteria and just focus on the A plus plays and not even like put my money on any like B or C plays that just might work but might not work or a little more risky. I want the clearly defined like A plus setups for me.
So how are you doing that? I know I get that you're saying this is what I'm going to do, but what are you doing to actually make sure that happens?
Well, I first of all, it sounds like I was probably really prepared, but last night I wrote down like all the criteria for the setup, which is why it's fresh on my mind. So I have those criteria.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I have the criteria I just wrote down on a post-it note, and I'm just going to put that right next to my screen. And a big thing, I think, the over trading has kind of picked up the last couple weeks, and I honestly think it's because like school and classes were ending, and like I had more free time to be in front of the screen. So what I'm trying to do, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet, is just like get a routine in. So like I do the same thing every day. I'm not in front of the screen at like random weird times of the day where I might take some degenerate, stupid trade. Just so that way I keep doing the same thing every day to just block out the possibility of me doing other stupid stuff. So so like all the way up from like when I wake up in the morning and like go to the gym and eat breakfast, sit down, trade, all the way like after the fact, just so that way I have a strict like regimen to prevent any stupid.
Good, yeah. Yeah, I understand. That's a big challenge. I mean, it was a challenge I had to face, and I've knock on wood, I've gotten rid of it. Well, we'll see what happens, but
no, it's weird
tough.
because you always think you want to be a full-time trader because you want to be in front of the screen.
Right.
I've honestly like kind of traded worse the last like week or two just because I'm always in front of the screen now, always trying to, force another trade. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's so weird.
It is. It's really weird, but I think you'll be able to conquer that, especially when school starts. It's going to help you get back in the routine too. And then when you start working, I think that's why when you do work, at first, like myself, I thought, if I'm going to work, or if I want to learn a trade, I should just leave. And that's what I did. But I don't think that's necessarily the truth. I think you could do it. I think it's better if you are working, because then you're not sitting at the screen all day, man. Because like I was sitting at the screen all day for a year straight, and I'm telling you this, like you get bored.
Exactly.
So you get really bored, and when you get bored, and you start to feel that itch, like I should be doing something, because we are built to work. Like we like to work, we like to get things done, and if you're sitting there looking at a screen, being disciplined, and at first you're like the first maybe week, couple of days, or depending on who you are, you're like, I am deciding to do nothing, which is an action, and you feel good about that. But then somewhere along that time frame, you start to forget about that, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm bored. I need to do something, and you start trading just random stuff that you normally wouldn't trade. It's so ridiculous, but everyone goes through it.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be? So I get that's one thing, and one of your biggest challenges you're working on. What's something that you've been very proud about? What's something that you're just very proud about what you've been able to accomplish thus far?
So I'm pretty proud just being able to save up enough money to get over to PDT, which is, being a full-time college student isn't like an easy thing to do. And especially because like a lot of that time frame I was trying to save up, I wasn't necessarily a profitable trader. So I didn't like trade my way over PDT. I just like worked outside of trading, had other streams of income to then try to get enough money for PDT. So I'm super proud about that. In terms of my trading specifically, like I'm pretty proud of the way I manage risk, even though I do like some stupid shit. The risks are always within like my risk criteria. Like it's pretty rare for me on any one trade to lose like substantially more risk than I'm willing to put on. Like now I might lose like 3 or 4 trades in a day and it might add up to a big loss, but on a per trade criteria, like I'm never going to lose more than at most in some weird black swan event, like 2R on a trade. I'll just cut the loss, get out. Because especially what I've learned, and it did take a while, like a year ago, Matt would say different stuff, but like just being able to survive and trade another day. And it's pretty crazy how like just the small wins, like you'll look back a week later or like a month later and be like, wow, this like added up to a pretty substantial amount of money. And so just
Oh,
taking
it's
it slow.
crazy.
It's crazy.
It
It's
is.
like you don't realize it in the moment. You're like,
Yep.
oh, it's a small win today, and then like you look back at 2 weeks and you're like, wow, this added up to way more money than I thought it was going to. But keeping those losses small allows you to like do that, because it's that, which is a huge reason why I moved into just the more mid and large caps in the first place. Because in penny stocks, I would have a couple consistent days and then just wipe it out with that one big
Yep.
loss. So keeping the losses small and just allowing the small wins, medium wins to just build up over time. I mean,
Yeah, man.
that's been a huge focus for the last couple months, and I think I'm doing it pretty well, and I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. I'm proud of you. I think you're doing a great job. And now we're not, I guess we're going to have to change the name from Beyond the PDT, their podcast, to Over the PDT. Or I guess it is Beyond. You are Beyond the PDT, actually.
Yeah.
I'm the idiot here. Yeah. But anyway, that's awesome, man. Well, for everyone who doesn't know, Matt has his own show podcast, and it's a great show. I listen to it religiously. It's called Beyond the PDT. Definitely check them out. And Matt, is there anything you want to say to anybody out there who's listening right now? Just maybe a way they can reach out to you if they have questions, or just anything in general.
Sure. I mean, first off, if you want to get a hold of me, I on Twitter all the time. So just shoot Beyond the PDT DM, and I'll probably be either Bryce, who's the other host, or I will answer that, I'm sure, super quickly. And then just like a motivational thing, keep going. Like it takes way longer. And I know you can talk about this a lot too. You're not going to get it in the first 3 months, 6 months, probably even year. Like I'm
Right.
2 years in, and it's not like I was slacking off for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like I was actively working on it for 2 years, and it just takes a lot longer than you think. So don't, get down on yourself and just keep moving forward. And then, if you just don't give up, eventually, I mean, in theory, you should get there. You just got to keep doing the right things, and it's just going to take a lot longer than you anticipate.
I agree, man. I agree 100%. This is a skill that once we do get it consistently, it takes care of you. And that's awesome. So thanks again for being on the show, my friend. And we're going to bring you back for sure in the future to at least hear where you're at, especially after work. I want to see how that Matt's going.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. And I can't wait for when you, because we're going to have you on our show too. So just all the listeners, stay tuned for that because Alex will be here.
Awesome. Thanks, man.